Right, we're back. Anna Bay, an elegance coach from London, has revealed the top 10 things women should avoid if they want to be considered elegant and classy. She says it's all in the little details.
Have you ever wondered what makes elegant people different from the rest of us? Well, believe it or not, it's actually in those small details that the rest of us don't pay attention to. My dear elegant ladies, let's find out what those details are.
So we won't make you watch that for too much longer. A few examples on the list are being passive-aggressive, not pushing your plate away at the end of a meal, and not speaking loudly on the phone whilst on public transport. That's what apparently makes you elegant. Perhaps I need some help with this. I'm not sure. I consider myself reasonably elegant, or at least polite. So let's see. Joining me now is etiquette and behaviour expert Liz Brewer. Now, you disagree with some of the things that this lady had to say. She said...
I think there were about two that I agreed with.
Go on then.
Load of rubbish. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And this ghastly word, classy. Have you used that word?
I don't like using that word out loud. I was reading it and I thought...
You don't use that. And you also, she referred to something about pudding. You can't leave or go to the loo in the middle of a meal. Well, I'm sorry. You know, if needs must, you excuse yourself.
You've got to go.
And you don't call it dessert. It's this business. And this thing about toilet. We have a beautiful British language where we call the loo, or the bathroom, or going to powder my nose, going to the men's room. We do not call it the toilet. That's a French word. We don't need the French word. We don't call dessert. We call it pudding. We're British. Let's be proud of our language. But if you want to go through them, I will thrash through them with you.
Go on then, very quickly.
Okay.
So, the obvious one at the start, don't be rude or snarky to another person.
You know, the Brits are very good with a look or with sarcasm, but sarcasm done in such a way that nobody's quite sure, are you being rude? Do we accept it? So that is, again, I mean, we're good at putting down without nobody really realising it. I could say to you, by the way, sitting on this chair, they're so interesting. I always look forward to coming to the studio because I'm sitting on this chair where I can't put my feet on the ground. You've obviously got men with very tall legs. But I'm going to say, no, it's always an interesting experience. So I'm being sarcastic.
Yes, there's a way of getting your point across.
I'm getting my point across.
Although, to be fair, I think that's also on the list here because that might come under passive aggression. Are you passive-aggressive, Dominique, in your everyday life?
I wouldn't say I'm passive-aggressive, but I would say I am quite a sarcastic person. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time, people don't know whether or not I'm being serious. So.
Precisely. My point.
So
go through the rest.
Elegant British women should just, you know, let their view across, but in a sort of sneaky way, a little underhanded way. So another one is don't push away your plate at the end of a meal.
Well, I'm going to give you an example of that. I was staying and putting on a dinner in Istanbul, in Turkey, and it was a charity thing, and then it was called Worldwide Fund for Animals or something. Anyway, we had Prince Philip as the guest of honour, and something went wrong with the service. So we were sitting there, and the plates were not moving, and it went on, and finally, I thought, this is ridiculous. So I started. I was 2 away from Prince Philip, and I started to stack the plates. And the woman opposite me said, such bad manners to stack. And Prince Philip stood up and he started to take the plates and said, well, we do in my house.
Ooh. Prince Philip did the arranging of the plates, the clearing of the table.
It's a question of using your common sense and behaviour, especially social behaviour. There is no mystery. There is nobody up there saying to us guys down here, thou shalt not put your elbows on the table. Thou shalt not push your plate away. It's a question of if needs must. And also using your common sense and doing what would be sensible in circumstances. Because it's always when something happens and you think, what do I do now? Use your common sense.
Yeah. But do you think that we're getting, Dominique as well, do you think young women are perhaps don't have as good etiquette as they may have done in the past? You know, the ladette culture, the swigging from your bottle of Lambrini on the street, maybe shouting at each other, acting like little
ladette.
hooligans, little female hooligans.
I think most definitely. I think that's because a lot of the culture that surrounds how women should act, being ladies, is associated with that damned patriarchy. So we need to act as unladylike as possible. But certain things, like if I'm at a restaurant and they don't take my plate, I don't want to look at the scraps of food that I left. So I am going to slightly push it away or cover the plate up with a napkin, and if that's bad manners, then so be it.
Yeah, so young women now a disgrace.
Who is to say it's bad manners? Who is it? Who is this person that says you're not allowed to do
This
that?
Anna Bay.
Yeah, well, I mean, she got so much wrong, it was unbelievable. I mean, it really was. Carry on.
Well, we've got 10 here, so I'm not sure we're going to have time to go through all of them. Let me pick one. OK, so...
The one about going to the loo.
The one going to the loo, yes. Don't go to the bathroom during a meal in a restaurant. Well, presumably it's more polite to do that than, say, soil yourself.
Exactly.
So
normally, if you're going out, you're ready when you go out. When you arrive at a restaurant, and she also did this thing about you must leave your jacket or coat with the cloakroom. But normally when you arrive, if you're a woman, you might want to titivate or go to the loo when you arrive.
Exactly.
And then you don't know, are you going to a room which is going to have air conditioning? Is it going to be warm, cold? You don't know. So if you've got a jacket, you normally keep it on. And there are places I go to where I deliberately take my coat with me because otherwise I've got to wait 20 minutes to get my coat from the cloakroom afterwards. So whatever I can do, I could sit on it, I can take it off when I'm there. But going to the loo, I mean, if you needs must, and if you can't sit there in agony, so you politely say, excuse me,
Also, I mean, it's the least of our problems, isn't it? Most people won't be able to go to a restaurant in a lot of time, in a little bit of time anyway, with all these rising costs. Now, you tell me what your tips are for etiquette then. If they're not these ones, these 10 that this lady has... quite patronisingly told us. What would you actually give?
What you do is, if you're in a situation you think, what do I do now? You think, what would cause least offence? What would put the other people or person at ease? And what would be the simplest? Use your common sense. That's what it's about.
Use your common sense. Well, the only problem with that, Dominique, is some people's common sense is
don't cause
better than others.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Because I was at an event, and I was told that it's rude to go and get a plate of food first before anybody else. I was told that by someone who I think was probably a bit too self-conscious, and I was just like, well, I'm hungry. The food is ready, so I'm gonna go and get a plate of food. Me personally, I don't like to sort of micro-analyse everything. I'm more go with the flow, and I'm quite confident as well. So I think there's manners, and then there's over-analysing situations.
I think so. You just make everyone around you feel awkward.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
So just as a last thing, Liz, in the studio here, obviously we're perched on these seats, which are maybe sometimes comfortable.
Really?
How would you sit on such a seat in the most politeful and elegant way?
Well, this whole business about you should never cross your legs here, that came into being when we were wearing minis and, what I used to call pussy pelmets. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Goodness me! I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and therefore it was very revealing and wasn't elegant to be able to do that. So it was much easier. So we got in a habit, and then the golden rule: you could never do that. Well, you can do that. I can do that if I wanted. If I'm wearing trousers, it's not good for the circulation. But normally you'd cross them at your ankles. I noticed she said something there though about men must never show the soles of their shoes. Well, I can't even remember when some man showed me the soles of his shoes, and I didn't understand that at all. So maybe it's when perhaps men sit with their legs crossed. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense.
Well, there you go. We shouldn't listen to what this random lady has to say about how we should all behave. We should listen to Liz, of course.